Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to this live launch, pre-launch of the 4X Method book. It is coming soon in Amazon, so stay tuned. I will be sharing that link soon, but if you want to be one of the first to have the actual book in your hands, ready to go, ready to find amazing insights about how to bridge silos in the organization and prepare it for growth, you can go to the 4xmethod.com and put your pre-order, right? So that we can then actually send it to you and you'll have that book in your hands. But welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. For those who probably don't know me that well, I'm Corey Davison. I am the founder of 4Experience, and I'm the author of the 4X Method. And I am also really excited. I'm doing this series of interviews with some of the amazing leaders who have contributed to shaping and giving their insights to the 4X Method book. And this is really, what is the 4X Method? We're going to talk about it in detail, but technically it's like, think about it as a proven methodology. It's an equation that centers your company and building it as an experience for your customers. And it's been proven to actually drive growth and generate like 66% more profit, than companies who don't focus on experience. So if that's not enough of an incentive, I have more, right? But today I have the pleasure of introducing you to, I have to honestly pause here because this is exciting for me because we have such a history. I would say is one of I like to describe her as a unicorn, right? So it's basically, I'm going to introduce you to Margaret. And Margaret and I met years ago, like over a decade ago, when she was in a marketing role for a software company. And I was conducting research at that time, to help them understand their customer profile. So I was like doing straight up research. And she was working with a tech company in marketing. And that was a start, of a long-term, passion, discovering that we both have similar passions, for technology, for humanity, for from human-centric design and more, and also empowering women. So a lot of different connections. And how could I not include her in the book, right? Like, how could I ask her? And she's so grateful that she said yes. She's a yes person. Love that positive too. And now she has started, one of the things you should know about Margaret is that when you're listening to her, you are listening to 25 years of experience that span from marketing. She's bringing in all of the background with operations. She's been, we'll talk about it in more detail here too. And in the product world, many times without actually wearing the title. But if you want insights about product and product experience, Margaret is your girl. And she has I should say, your woman, right? I guess she has also started her own company that's called Product Better that focuses on fractional product management. So please, clap, 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 help me welcome my unicorn friend. Ta-da! I told you, she's a unicorn. There's Margaret.
Hi, everybody. Margaret. Thanks for that. Thank you, Corey. Thanks for that great introduction. That was awesome. You always make me sound so much better than I
am. Well, someone has to remind you about your royalty status and many things, right? So, and that's what I'm here for.
But, I'll take it.
Wonderful. Margaret, it's so great to connect. As I was sharing, we have serendipitously, met through work and in similar, similar interests that have been built over the years. And I've seen your transit, your growth and your transition in different areas, which I share that sentiment. I've also lived in a lot of different silos in different companies or for my clients. And I wanted to ask if you can talk a little bit about that background, what took you from being in a marketing role to, all the way to products and now starting your own company?
Yeah, it's been quite a ride. before I even got into the marketing world, I worked in ad agencies. And so, a lot of the things that I learned back then in ad agencies about dealing with client expectations, really understanding what their customers needed, all of those kinds of things, that really translated into my roles in, I say, client side as opposed to agency side. Um, and I'm such a curious person. I mean, I am curious, not I am curious. But anyway, uh, so I found myself really just wanting to learn more, right? What is this product going to do for the people that we're building it for? So I started asking those types of questions. I had a great peer mentor in one of my early tech roles, who to this day is probably the person that I look up to the most from a product management lens. She taught me so much about how to build that customer empathy into what you're building. And a lot of the work that I've done has been at the very forefront of new industries breaking. So, when I started working in the technology space, the first company I worked for had a mobile location service, but it was before phones even had GPS on them. And when we were having those customer discovery calls, people would people would be like, "Ugh, I don't want to be tracked all the time. Why would I want that?" And now, if anybody's like me, I turn on my GPS just to go to my grocery store, right? Um,
Of course, and sometimes to remind me, like where I'm walking in the house, I'm like, no, absolutely,
yeah, I know how to get there.
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know, it's a comfort thing. Um, so yeah, so I've kind of followed that path. I love being able to introduce new technology to people. There's, the ecosystem here in Calgary where we are has grown so much since I started in it. There were five tech companies when I started. Now there are thousands. And the innovations that keep coming out they're exponentially mind-blowing. So how can you not love to do all of those things? So I started in marketing, um, worked at a company that I grew to 20 million users around the world in 7 countries, 5 languages. And at that company, I was employee number 5. And, we grew it to a couple of hundred people, employees. But because I was at the start of the company and I was the only non-technical person, I kind of started doing all of these other things
Mm.
that weren't really marketing.
Mm.
I did that for 6 years, right? I was the right hand to the CEO. And so I was involved in accounting, I was involved in legal oversight, from a compliance and reporting standpoint, all of the HR. It was myself and my tech partner. We did all of the hiring. And so when you're doing that, all of a sudden it's not marketing, it's very fully operations. And I realized how much I just loved having my fingers in all of those things. Right? It was just like it really filled my cup. Um, but then, the last summer, I started thinking about what do I want to do next. I was COO. I had a couple of rounds of being COO in growth
Mhm.
stage companies, and I didn't I didn't want to keep doing that, right? I'm a pretty good COO, but I don't love being a COO. And so
Mm.
I started looking back and going, what have I loved and what am I really good at? And that's when it kind of came to me that my most joyous moments have always been in helping build and validate those products. So speaking with customers, understanding what their pain points are rather than, building a solution and taking it to them, right? Really getting in on the ground floor and saying, what do you need? What do you want? And then making sure that that aligns with what we're doing from a product build perspective. And sometimes you have to say, you know what, that's a great idea, but that's not a great idea for our product right
Mhm.
now. But when you tell your customers or users that, the amount of gratitude that they feel that you're not ignoring the suggestion, right? You're actually saying, you know, love that idea. It just doesn't fit with what we're trying to do with this product. They still feel heard and right. And this is where you and I connect a lot on the human centric design side of things, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was gonna say it's like, oh my gosh, like it's like my you see everybody why I love Margaret, it's like my soulmate. Like in the research world, in the experience world, it's like, we have this connection already, right? Of I love that you have that's something that we have in common, that we have lived in those silos, that we have learned from hands-on experience, right? Like I remember, for example, for me, like doing surveys was like the organic way, right? Like it was like the, like typing the survey, iterations, the knocking on people's door or going, in the field with a massive amount of, and I was like, running an entire operation of research all the way to coding manually, right? And then data entry, all these different things, all of those things teach you something, right?
They do.
And I think like for me, it was like when you're like, just to use that as an example, I go like, now I don't see a feedback as data. I see it as like a person that I used to knock on their door, and sometimes they would invite me for a cup of coffee, and we would go longer than the survey, and then you start learning the qualitative part of it, right? But now we do it all online, and it's like, there's this digital aspect and technology aspect that is meant to make life easier. It's meant to connect us. And if we don't do it right, it can actually separate us from the customer, right? Because we lose visibility. Now, I have a question for you with all of this, because what I love is that you have been in companies undergoing growth. And you said you've been employee number 5, you've grown it, you've been the, like the Swiss Army knife, doing all of the operations in an organization and growing it. And so from a perspective of the theme of the book, right, the 4X method, we're talking about bridging, the silos in the product experience. What is something that you learned, as an insight from living in those silos?
Yeah, I think this is something, well, I actually, when I talk about this to outside people who don't necessarily know, I actually often refer to you and the 4X method. And that comes from my days at WestJet, right? So every customer touch point that we had, whether it was on the phone or on the website or at the airport or on a plane, you were getting the same experience that we were promising you from a marketing standpoint, right? So our brand experience, we said we are all these amazing, friendly things. And then when you, as a guest, we didn't call you a customer, right? You were our guest on that plane.
Yes.
And so we, that was our brand promise. We delivered on that by our customer experience. We delivered on that by never over promising, right? So we made it very clear, you're not getting food on these planes.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but we're going to serve you peanuts before we couldn't do that, right? But
Right.
like we would actually, when we were launching a new city, we would actually go into the city with these little packs of peanuts that had our flight schedule attached to the top of them with a tag,
Yeah.
and we would stand on street corners and give them out, right? And
That's so
so
creative. Yeah. But it's
we were,
associating, right? It's like you're hinting
yeah,
to like you're grabbing something, right, that could have been a negative and turning it into a strength. That's a great example. And
yeah. And it goes all the way around to the employee as well, right? And so yeah, so I always talk about your methodology when I talk about WestJet and how I learned that there, right? That was a real
mhm.
proving ground for me because we did operate that way.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? When you start seeing like, let's use the WestJet analogy, right? And I do have friends at WestJet, and we do talk about customer experience. They still call it guest. And one of the things I was going to add is like words matter, right? You know, what you're
They
calling a
do.
customer, how you understand it is like a customer is not a customer, right? It's like it's the person who, you know, needs to get to a wedding, you know, on the other side, or like, or a funeral, right? Two very distinct, very different experiences, right? Like, and I'm like, oh, my heart just goes, right? You know, for the joy and the, you know, but it's like, how do you design it for it, right? And then, so as I was, you know, thinking about it, and one of the analogies I use for the 4X method is like, if you were thinking about everybody is well, first of all, fact, every company, whether you're B2B or B2C, you're delivering an experience
To a
in
person.
to a person. And if you're B2B and you think this is all about processes and products and systems and stuff, you know, you're missing the factor that is key. People with emotions, with days, and they don't think about your product all day, right? And so it's like it's not the center of the universe. And so designing an experience only for the product would be kind of thinking that you're going to put a guest on an airplane, but only design the experience for the
The
in
person
flight,
going to a wedding.
or for the person going to a wedding, right? Or the, you know, or for first class, right? Or and the other thing is when you're doing journey maps, sometimes, you know, because it's one of those tools, many times I go in organizations and it's like, well, it's like you're looking, and it's okay sometimes if you're looking to like solve the bathroom experience in a on the plane, for example. You can zoom in, but you first need to know, what does this plane experience look like, right? You know, what is the safety of it? What is like processes? All of these things matter. Safety, you know, regulation, the big picture. So many factors in it, right? And now let's bring that, you know, bringing it back to tech world and
Mm.
companies that are undergoing tremendous growth, because you know, it's not the same being employee number 5 and everybody knows exactly what's happening. Tell me what happens when you start reaching that critical mass and you start like hiring exponentially and getting areas, you know, moving into a teenage stage is what I call it, right? It's like you're going from teenage and you want to be a unicorn, you want to be an adult. What is that? What do you start noticing happens internally?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. One of the things that I put out weekly is I have a blog that talks about the product experience from from the perspective of culture, right? How do you build a
Mhm.
product culture? And you know, as those companies, as I've seen them grow, culture shift happens.
Mhm.
And that can be a great thing. It can also be something that just, you know, completely destroys a company.
Yeah.
And so being able to actually have a solid foundation around what your beliefs and values are as a company, hiring for those beliefs and values, reminding your team as you're growing that they're still your beliefs and values, but also being open to the fact that how employees interact when you're 5 people is different than when you're 12 people. It's different when you're 50 people. And so you have to make adjustments for that
Mm-hmm.
as you grow. And so I think that's one of the things that I have really taken to heart. It wasn't evident to me when I was younger
Mm.
that, this is something that really comes from a retrospective learning. So yeah, and
And for our audience, sorry, like I'm jumping here, but I'm thinking it's like you're bringing the gem of like that retrospect, to the table so that you're alert, you're aware. Okay, then you avoid the pitfalls. Knowing is important, right? Understanding more than just statistics, but behaviors. And I
yes.
love that you're touching on it because that's one of the 4X, the EX, right? So let's do it for our audience here. Let's see, because there'll be a winner, whoever gets it right. What are the 4X? Right? So I'm not gonna put you on the under pressure here, Margaret, but to honor what you're here for, there is the Margaret, it does.
Product.
Right. So it's the product experience, right? That is connected to the brand experience.
Brand.
Yes, brand. And then brand and product also deliver on a
Customer
experience, right? And then you need an
employee
army.
experience.
Yeah, you need an army with a culture. You need to change management. It touches on all those things, right? That is like, you just don't tell people it's like, oh, change of plans. We're now a growth company. And that process that you were doing before is like, or we're going to keep that process and try to become, a company. I was talking to one of the other leaders that was that's in the book as well, Anusha, right? That it's like, how do you start, with a team of like, I'm not going to honor the exact number, but let's say, you have 30 customer success managers to then all of a sudden having 300, nearly 400 employees, right? A company that is, going from 50 million or 500 million to 100 million, valuation, right? So, and you're going to use the same processes, right? And you're going to like, and you're going to serve all customers the same way? No, right? If you're smart enough, like, and you're going to just tell people, it's kind of like, hey, we designed this strategy over here. Here's the manual, go and do it. People matter, right?
They do.
And then you're going to bombard them with 30-minute meetings all day, and then ask them to like think strategically, right? Your managers or like your directors and everything. So I like to say, it's not an engagement survey, and customer experience is not a CSAT or an NPS, right? And product is not just user experience, right? Or metrics, or you need those, but you need the whole story. And I was thinking about this today, actually. I was saying, I'd make the analogy of like the whole pizza, and these are slices of the pizza. But today I was thinking kind of like, well, but where I grew up, we called it burrito or enchilada, right? But it's like, whatever the case, it's like ingredients of building the whole picture, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, without it, it's without that whole view, there is going to be a person that will be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, well, it depends, right?
Yeah.
It could be your customer. It could be your employee. It could be your board of directors, right? Like, but there is for every company, humans are at the heart of that company. And so how do you keep that in mind regardless of what you're building?
Yeah. You have to account for vendors, partners, right? Like I was at a company that we would sell hardware and software. It was, for digital whiteboards around the world, like the number one digital whiteboard company. And it was like the channel partner was like, and then the layers of channel partners, right? It's like, how do you bring part of the equation of your experience with the customer? They are a customer and they deliver to your customer. Sometimes it's not a straight path, right? You can design this beautiful experience and then the person in between messes it up, right? Or if you're hiring or they don't, you lose credibility, for example, with the middle person, right? Then the next one is if you are using third parties, like, some companies still use, like call centers, for example, right? Or
Yeah,
they are
absolutely.
not aligned with your brand and your language. I had one experience with one brand that I love and I highly respect and everything. And my insight told me, it's actually a fitness equipment, biking and treadmill from home with an app that you exercise with. And so I love it. So I was getting gear for my husband for his birthday, and this was during COVID. And because we got it at home, we were doing it. And so I'm super excited and everything. But by the time it arrived, I ordered like way ahead and it arrived. But then I had to wait for the birthday, right? And then I found out that I think it was like too small or something, right?
Oh.
Or too large or something. So I wanted to do a return, but they were like, no, it's day 31 and it's policy. And I was like, well, this is not aligned with the brand. And I'm sorry, but I don't want to be fired from my, like the tier 3 or, like a conversation, right? But I didn't get upset about it. I was just kind of like, oh, there's a misalignment between the culture and the employees feeling threatened, but these employees, like a third, all of a sudden I was like, oh, this company doesn't have their own call center.
Yes.
Right. And they just delegated it. They need the brand alignment all throughout the entire journey. Right. Because I thought, I was like, you're not going to make an exception, and it's COVID, and, and it's like the pandemic, and it's like, it's my husband's birthday. Things like that, right? I'm not saying you have to bend, but the language matters.
It does.
Don't tell me it's policy. It's like, that's where you're going to get all of the fired up. I'm like, I've done a lot of meditation to not get that version of myself coming up, and be very kind when I can. Deep breath, exact empathy, right? But at the same time, it's like, not everybody's like that, but it's like, choose your words.
Yes.
Right?
I had a very similar experience just this week, actually. I had ordered a product, and the delivery company tried to deliver it to an apartment complex that has a very similar house number to my house. And so they apparently, and I only learned this yesterday, they apparently started trying this delivery 5 days prior, but they were leaving delivery notices at this other place. And so I wasn't getting any delivery notifications on my app or anything like that. And I finally reached out and got a person that I could speak to at the delivery company, and they explained what was going on and everything. I was like, okay, great, but you probably should talk to your delivery person so that they can understand what's going on. I messaged the company that I had ordered the product from, and I said, please, when you're shipping future shipments to me, don't use that delivery company again. And whether they actually choose to do that or not, her reassurance, the customer service person, her reassurance that they took that very seriously and would put that on my file to make sure that I didn't have that experience again. That was all I needed. It was, it was a level of reassurance that I'm being heard, right? This was very frustrating for me because I had to wait a week, and I was getting no information on where this product was. So yeah, that words do matter, and how we as businesses respond to our customers or our vendors or our team, whoever the stakeholder is, that matters.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's another book that you and I have to write about all of these cases of CX gone wrong. or Forex gone wrong. I think that's the title of our next book. Stay tuned. We have to get book number 1, the Forex method, and then the Forex method gone wrong, or when they miss it, right? But absolutely. Now I'm just kind of like, I want to keep telling stories here too. But it's so interesting because, like, well, let's bring it back. There's one benefit of like having massive, like the B2C world, the consumer packaged goods, the retail environment. They have an advantage where it's like you actually have very tangible interactions. You have, like visibility, and you have tremendous, most likely, databases of people that you can reach out to, right? That you, and if you strategize it really well, you can build a well-oiled, voice of the customer machine. And if you don't know how to do that, well, talk to me. But it's kind of this idea, right? And Margaret, right? We'll solve it for you. But one of these things is, it's like, okay, so one is like, maybe if it's not a priority, and I have found this in companies before, that it's like, it's not a priority, and it's almost like telling to your customer, it's kind of like, yeah, thank you, I don't want to hear it, right? If you're not like, isn't it, and it's words matter and everything, but it's like, there is simple ways that you can actually turn it into an engine that it goes like, pew, 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 and you're growing and you're delivering value to your customers because you're learning on the spot. Like you don't no longer, remember how I was telling you how I used to do service in the 90s, early 2000s. It's like, now it's like this, and bring AI. We're going to talk about AI right now, right?
Yes.
Into the mix, right? And the cautions of AI, but also the opportunities of AI, which is also in my book. But this is so incredible. Now, B2B, completely different enchilada, right? Completely different tamale. I'm bringing the culture.
You're making me hungry.
I know, I'm getting hungry too. But it's a completely different scenario, right? Because it's like you don't have an ample database of customers to tap in, but everybody in the company wants to hear from them. The product team, the marketing team, like, how did we do the customer experience? And by the way, can you come for this ideation thing for the product? But you have like probably like 10 people who are willing to, right? That are your favorite customers. Okay, that's one limitation because you're not hearing for the other 90, right? If you have 100 really good enterprise customers or something, right? So the blind side of it, right? So I'll pause there because you have been in both worlds, right? You've been in B2C and B2B and like, and AI. Tell me about it, Margaret. What is your take on it?
Do you know what? So I'm gonna go a little bit further back than even having conversations with your customers, because a lot of the work that I do is talking to potential customers as we're building, right? So it's a different animal. It's not, how can I make this cup better?
Yes.
It's the problem is that we need a vessel, or that's not even the problem is that we're dehydrated. So how do we solve for how do we solve for dehydration? And so when you are on your way to building what might become a cup, it might become a fountain, whatever.
A backpack with a hose.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
You have to find people, and I'll stick with my very simplistic kind of theme here, but you have to find people who are dehydrated, who realize that they have a problem to solve in the first place. And so when you're talking from a B2B perspective, trying to really find who, what companies have the problem that you think your solution can solve, and how do you find them? How do you get in front of them? Once you have them, how do you make sense out of they probably have a list of 10 problems that you could solve. How do you make sense out of which of those problems actually fit with your product vision.
Yeah.
Right. And so, going to AI, one of my favorite things to do is I was doing this all morning. So I've created my ICP, my ideal customer profile, for anybody who doesn't know that acronym. I created my ICP and I fed it into my favorite AI tool and asked it to create a spreadsheet for me of companies that it could find through this source, this source, this source, and build me out a spreadsheet, including contact information. And so, what previously would have taken me probably realistically days, if not a week or two, to do that research.
Yeah.
I say manually, but like actually looking on the web, going website by website by website by website by website, finding directories of companies that could even, possibly be in there in the first place, scraping their website or picking up the phone and calling them. AI did that for me this morning in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
To get me a really robust list of companies.
Because you have to train it, of course, right? And and really, yeah.
Yeah. And so the possibilities around how AI can fit into the product journey, it truly is mind-blowing.
Oh my gosh.
How much time and effort we can save. All of that time that I would have spent doing that research, I now have all of that time that I can actually put into having those conversations.
It's a trade-off, right?
It is.
Values. And it's also, it's like, what do you value most? What gives you more? Well, and I mean, interesting enough, for better or for good or worse, right? It's going to be, that's a full-time job. You used to have a person doing that, right? I'm thinking a research analyst that would do that. And I'm like, okay, that'll be another conversation we need to have in more depth, right? But it's like, absolutely, it's like, how do people embrace, companies? I'm going to talk to companies specifically here, right? Because in companies you have employees, right, and all these things. But it's like, how do you prepare them for this next wave, with upskilling them? And the other part that you're talking to, if we go with the research phase, the discovery phase that you're talking about, right, and it's innovation. Right? Because sometimes it's like what you're saying is like, how do we solve this for a customer problem that they have, but they don't know they have, problem that they know they have, but nobody has articulated a solution, right? Or something like that. And then in the book, just referencing back, in the 4X method, you'll find it on, I think it's chapter 10. I'm talking about artificial intelligence where it comes, as it relates to experience management, right? And one of the things that I'm going to call you guys up, like everybody, leaders here, is that if you're not embracing AI and you're not taking care of your data and you're not seeing your data as the gold in our territory here in Alberta is the oil, right? The worth of that, and you're letting it sit in the mine or in the oil sand, right? And you're not mining that, you're gonna be behind.
Absolutely.
And if you're just gonna be a consumer, because what you were sharing is like, yes, you can have productivity and everything, but innovation, how do you embed that in your product? How do you make your customer's life easier? You gotta learn. You have to have a strategy. You have to listen to your customers. You have to apply the 4X method. And right, you gotta talk to people like Margaret and myself, right? It's like, get the big picture, right? This is not just about bringing the data scientists and the developers and the engineers. All of them matter, absolutely, part of the engine and everything.
Yes.
If they all get experience, if they all start understanding that what they're building, is for an experience, and the more you're connected to who do you serve? Yes. in
The
every single thing in your company. Who do you serve, right?
one of
Then
my favorite
data
things,
goes there. Mhm.
yeah, one of my favorite things, sorry to cut you off,
No,
is
no, go ahead.
bringing the developers
Yes.
into conversations with customers, right? Not being the middle person and, having the conversation with the customer and then having the conversation with the developer. Actually bring your lead developer or, somebody
Oh,
on that
yes.
dev team along so that they're hearing it firsthand and they can ask questions directly. Questions from a product, design perspective that I might not, might just completely go over my head.
Oh, they know the
But
back. Yeah,
yes.
they know the background. I, can I share a story? Because this one is
Yeah,
like,
please.
I just had an experience like a few months ago, actually working, with, I'm working for embedded in a client's team, right?
Mhm.
And so we got the opportunity, I'm working with a full, design team that has, developers and scrum master and digital architect and, all of these different areas, analysts, etc. And to that point, it's like, brought in the developer, but many times there's this rule of like, don't bother their time if you don't need, like, they don't like me. One thing is to
I
understand, usually, people are introvert or they, or they want to guard their time. They want to be in productivity time, right? And the company says, don't bother this, so, but, I got the opportunity to bring in. The interesting thing was that I had this plan of like, walk us through, and we were doing this screen sharing, trying to see where does the problem lie. If the developer hadn't been there, because it only took one screen share where he said, oh, I know how to solve that. Huge problem solved, right? It's
absolutely.
almost like the bottleneck was removed just by introducing there. No questions asked, just experience, just, interaction with the actual user. And you can't say and send a survey for those things.
You can't.
You gotta like
Yeah,
immerse, embed it in your process, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So, Margaret, I love this conversation. I mean, we already have plans for everything from like spa day to Victoria Day, to travel to Victoria, whatever. I'm serious about that. Um, what message would you like to leave with our audience? To talk to that leader who is
Oh,
in a process of growth, who has already passed that startup stage, who's like, scale up, or maybe it's like a leader that's in the product team and but sees that there is like a misalignment in these other areas. What's your advice?
oh, that's a great question. Do we have another hour?
Stay tuned. Okay, my audience, let's stay tuned. Version 2 of this. No,
Just we'll put you on pause. Go grab a
or go get,
coffee.
yeah, go get some popcorn. Right, so I will entertain you. See, this is what happens when you put like two very creative, analytical, and executive people in the room. Yeah,
Together.
yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I think the the one thing I would leave people with is, oh gosh, there's so many. So transparency throughout your organization is absolutely key. But more importantly, everybody hears, hire people that are smarter than you. Don't go in as a leader and be the think that you're the smartest person in the room or whatever. Take that a step further and give your team agency to be in a safe environment to speak up. Don't dismiss the ideas or the thoughts or the insights of your team because amazing insights can come from anywhere, right? Like you don't have to be the chief architect or the you know chief product officer to have an amazing idea. And if you foster that environment, again, going back to my product culture whole kind of thing, right? if you foster that among your team so that people feel safe bringing up ideas and making them feel heard and admitting if you're wrong, if you're a leader, be okay to admit that you're wrong. It goes such a long way.
And that's what makes you a great leader, Margaret. You know, and the empathy, and that's why you're succeeding so much. So I know you have a wonderful community that you have built that respects you, and I am so thankful, Margaret. I am among those people that respect and admire, you know, your work. But mostly, what I admire is that human side of you, right? It's kind of like it's the human first technology. You know, it's a tool to help them, right? So, but your insights are invaluable. I mean it, right? This is not just about collecting years of experience. It's the insight that comes, you know, in how you listen. You want more sparkles? I have more for you because I am so sincere. I get so excited. So there you go. Margaret is in my book. She is so generous. She shared a lot of these insights. You want more. And where can people find you other than in the forexmethod.com book? Right? That everybody has gone and pre-ordered already, right? I'm like, yes. I'm going to see after this, after our call, right? That people are going to come to our live launch party. Yay, next week.
I know. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
You can find me at
this
product.
week. Yeah.
Was it this week?
Well, it's this week because this is going Monday.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. We're time traveling here.
No, yes, time traveling.
Yes. Yeah. Not only are we amazing human beings, we also invented time travel. So
for sure.
So productbetter.ca is my website. I am also writing a book, which is set to come out soon, and it is called The Leap: How to Transition from a Marketing and Operations Background into Product Management. So in addition to the insights that I share with Corey and with the companies that I work with, I have also created this guidebook for aspiring product managers who want to understand what, sorry, my dog has just joined us.
Come in. What a treasure.
So for people who are really trying to, there he is.
You gotta get him in the picture. I'm sorry, I'm like distracted.
I'm trying. Come here. Oh, he's like, Mommy, I don't like being on camera.
Camera shy. That's so.
So that's coming out soon too. And
Fantastic.
You can find information on that on my website.
You see, so many talents, so much sharing, so much giving. You're amazing. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for everyone who has been listening. And we hope that, you got some insights, get excited. Yes, you can. You can grow your company. You can be empathetic. You can be empowering. All of those things. Be a great leader. And we'll see you at the launch party. If you want to join the launch party, DM us. We'll send you the link to join the party. If you're curious more about this, come and join us. Okay.
Yes,
thanks again,
and
Margaret.
Just one more thing. Corey and I wear the same color lipstick.
Oh yes, hot pink. Mine is called a Heartbreaker. But and we're part of the She community. Margaret is basically iconic part of the She community, right? And it's like oh my gosh, we have so much to share with you guys. Let's get in a room. Everybody who's listening here, DM us. We're gonna have night out. Let's chat. There's so much fun that we can have.
Dancing.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Yes. Dancing. That is my language of music. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks
again,
Corey.
Margaret. It's always amazing talking to you. I love you too. Okay. You know that.
Yes. Thank you. Mutual.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. If you're talking, I can't hear you.
I was
There you
saying,
go.
watch me as I try to find the recording button, and then find the unmute button, and say, "Why don't we dance?" Anyway, just to like keep it real.
Yeah,
We don't want. I
absolutely.
just don't want to go. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you, and send us your DMs and laugh out loud with us. Bye.
Bye.
And record.